Hi guys, today we're going to talk about basic endgame technique. The first thing we shall discuss is the rule of square. What is the rule of square? The rule of square is a simple rule of thumb for the simplest type of endgame, which is there is one pawn, there is a king that is too far away to help the pawn to promote, and there's an opponent king who might or might not be able to catch this pawn before it promotes. The rule of square actually tells you easily without having to calculate the tempo on whether the white pawn can promote or not. Obviously, you can always count the tempo yourself and calculate that way, but in Blitz or Bullet online chess, sometimes it's easier to have this rule of thumb. So what is the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb is easy. So you have pawn in we have pawn in b3 here as white. We simply draw a square around it. So we can draw diagonal first, and we just draw a square around it like that. Let me delete the arrow for the black king. And the rule of square simply says that if the black king can then get into this square, then the black king should be able to catch the white pawn. If the black king cannot get into the square, then the black king wouldn't be able to catch the white pawn. Here, if white is to move, then the white pawn will promote because white will be one step ahead and the square will shrink and the black king wouldn't be able to get in. But if black to move, it will be a draw. Let's see this in action. First, white is to move. Okay, then obviously b4. The king will try to catch it. However, as determined by the rule of square, it's one tempo too slow. The pawn promotes and white wins easily here. Okay, I've restarted the board. Everything is the same. The position is identical, except that instead of white to move, now it's black to move. And as determined again by the rule of square, then because the black king is now to move, black is just in time to get into the square and catch this pawn. Let's see it in action. The pawn trying to promote as previously. However, this time, as we shall see, the black king is just in time to catch the white pawn. The white pawn promote on b8, but the black king, I should say, is in time to catch it, and it's a draw. Okay, now the second thing we should discuss is the concept of opposition, which is very important in the end game. Here I've added the evaluation gauge here, so you can clearly see that white should be winning. However, white should be careful not to make careless move because, for example, if white move d5, then it's totally a draw. That's why it's important to know opposition. So what is the concept of opposition? It's simple. So concept of opposition means we move like this. The white king now oppose the black king because now it's the black king turn to move, and the white king is opposed to the black king with one square in between them. What is the purpose of this, you would ask? Well, the purpose is that now the black king cannot move forward because all these three squares are controlled by the white king. So the black king can only move to the left or to the right, but it doesn't really matter. Let's show for the purpose of this exercise that the black king moved to the left, then we would sidestep it and move to the right. And here we're already winning. Actually, it doesn't matter what the black king does. We can just move the pawn forward, and this is this is easy win for white. Okay, now I've reset the position just to show you what happens again if white probably doesn't know the concept of opposition and move wrongly. Let's say move d5. Now it is black that can do opposition against the white king, which is moving to the left. The black king is now opposed to the white king with one square in between. So now white king cannot move forward. It has to move backward, and this is that draw if black knows how to continue. Just to give you an example line, of course there are a lot of lines that can happen here, but as long as you always oppose the white king, there is no way to proceed. So for example, now the pawn has to go forward, but again we just go back, black just go back I should say, and white king moves forward, and then the black king will oppose it again. And again, there is no way for white king, I should say, to move forward. And this is draw, because at this point the white king has to move here, which is stalemate, or move away, which gives away the white pawn, and it's a draw. Okay, and now the last thing we will discuss in this video is the concept of distant opposition, which is an extension of opposition. So distant opposition happens when the king is still opposed to the opponent's king, but there is more than one square between them. Let's demonstrate it. So here we have a position where it's actually a draw, as long as black plays correctly. So let's say the white king moves forward to f2. Here the black king needs to use distant opposition against the white king. So the right move here is e6. Again, this is distant opposition. Notice that the king is opposed to the white king, and there are three squares in between them. If white king is now to move forward to f3, then the black king will follow and keep the opposition. Now it's not more distant opposition, this is just opposition because there's only one square between them. And the black king control these three squares, so there is no way for white king to move forward. If the white king moves to the left, black king will follow. White king moves to the right, the black king will follow. Now let's say that the black king actually doesn't know the concept of distant opposition. Maybe black doesn't watch this video and moves wrongly, then white can actually win from this draw position. Let's say the white moves as before to f2, and black here, remember the right move is actually to move to e6. However, if you think about it, moving the king forward to e5, for example, is quite natural, and let's say that's what black does. And here black now is totally lost. Why? Because it's the white king now that can perform opposition against the black king. Black king might move to the middle, but again, white king just follow. And now the point, right, which is that the black king has to move either to the left or to the right, but it doesn't matter. Either way, the white king can move around it. Let's say the black king again oppose the white king. Actually, another thing I want to talk about is the concept of kings first. In the end game, it's very important for you to move your kings first before you moving your pawn. So here, if you see the evaluation gauge, white is totally winning. But if you move wrongly, let's say you move your pawn before you're supposed to, then it's a dead draw position again. You should always move your kings first to reach key squares. This is the concept that we're going to talk about a bit later, maybe in the next video. But once it reached the key squares, for example, the 6th rank, then you can move your pawn. So here, just to give an example line on how this would turn out if the white king knows what it's doing, then white will move to f4. Again, opposing the black king, not touching the pawn. Black has to give way. Again, move to the right or to the left, doesn't matter. And then the white king finally reach the 6th rank, one of these three squares. And now, finally, white can move the pawn. It doesn't matter here because it's already winning. Although, of course, you have to, again, be a bit careful here. If you move the pawn forward, then it's draw again. Remember the concept of opposition that we talked about earlier. Here, the right move is king f6. Black has to move either to the right or to the left. It doesn't really matter. And then now the king is ready to guard the pawn to promote. Doesn't matter what black does now. We just promote and we will win easily if we play white. Last thing I want to discuss in this video is actually a rule of thumb that makes it easy to remember how to do distant opposition against your opponent's king. So again, let's say we play as black here and then the white moves to f2. An easy way to remember which square will give white king opposition is to remember that we should always put our king. Well, maybe not always, there are always exceptions in chess, right? But most of the time, if we put our king in a square which has the same color as the opponent's king, so in this case, a white colored square, then we should be all right because we are opposing distantly the opponent's king. Remember previously, if we moved to e5, we would lose because this is black square and white king is in the white square. But if we move our king to e6, both are white square, then we should be all right. This should be a draw. Okay, guys, that's all from me in this video. I hope these techniques that we discussed today will help you in your games. Yeah, please leave comment and feedback in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much.